I am not transphobic. I am not homophobic, because I'm sure that rising today to make this speech will lead to another barrage of trolling and abuse and hate mail because of my views that I'm holding, born out of compassion for the gay community, but also compassion for young people. And in my view, in our household, in my family, we believe that a man cannot be a woman, a boy cannot be a girl. And that is what I would be telling my children, with the best intentions and from a place of love. I hate the idea of gay conversion. It is nasty, it is vicious, it is insulting, and it's a disgusting thing that we are even talking about. And I feel sorry for those people who may have undergone those kinds of approaches and treatments. They don't deserve it. And I'm proud to live in a country where we support the gay community. I'm proud that it was a Conservative government that legislated for gay marriage in 2013. Now, whilst I wasn't a Member of Parliament at that time, had I been, I would have voted in favour of same-sex marriage because I believe in equal opportunities. Gay people should not be persecuted, discriminated against, or victimised just because of who they love.
Suella Braverman.
Speaker, I'm very grateful to have the chance to speak in this very important debate, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for Brighton Kent Town for bringing this private member's bill. I note the words and references that the Honourable Lady Member for West Ham made about common sense and compassion. And I too share her aspirations for compassion and common sense in this debate. Rightly, we want to ensure that we have compassion and that our laws provide a compassionate level of support for the gay community, for the LGBT community, who deserve to live freely and safely in our country and indeed the whole world. And I care about compassion for young people as well. Young people exploring their sexuality, potentially with mental health challenges, vulnerable young people, needing the help and support of informed professionals to guide them in a way that does not cause them irreversible damage to their own bodies, which they may later come to regret. The case of Kira Bell, illustrated very, very powerfully by my the Honourable Member for Kirkcaldy, is the case in point. We have to have compassion for young people in the situation of Kira Bell. I have compassion for parents who are trying valiantly to navigate this uncharted territory these days. I've met parents who are struggling, who are upset, who themselves are depressed and overwhelmed by their teenagers, who are trying to discover their sexuality, who are trying to suggest that they want to transition, and as parents they really are in no man's land and they don't know what to do, and they only want to do right by their young children. And compassion for teachers who again find themselves mired in this minefield, not knowing what the guidance is, not knowing what the rules are, and scared of causing harm inadvertently, or on the one hand denying legitimate rights. And that's why I welcome the government's issuance of draft guidance for schools on how to support gender questioning children. I think it's a good start and something that has come after many years of requests. My own personal view is it doesn't go far enough, and ultimately, if we are to properly safeguard the welfare of children, we do need to totally ban transitioning under 18. And if that requires a change in the law, then I can't think of any better reason than to change the law, but to support and safeguard young children in those circumstances. Turning to the substance of the bill, and I will try and keep my remarks brief. I appreciate those who support this bill. They are well-intentioned, and I share their aspirations. I hate the idea of gay conversion. It is nasty, it is vicious, it is insulting, and it's a disgusting thing that we are even talking about. And I feel sorry for those people who may have undergone those kinds of approaches and treatments. They don't deserve it. And I'm proud to live in a country where we support the gay community. I'm proud that it was a Conservative government that legislated for gay marriage in 2013. Now, whilst I wasn't a member of Parliament at that time, had I been, I would have voted in favour of same-sex marriage because I believe in equal opportunities. Gay people should not be persecuted, discriminated against, or victimised just because of who they love. And let's remember that it's criminal to be gay in many countries around the world today in the 21st century. That is a grotesque shame on the society that we live in this world. Homosexuality is a criminal offence in about 60 countries around the world, half of them in Africa. And for example, the death penalty is legally prescribed as punishment for same-sex sexual acts in Brunei, Iran, Mauritania, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and some of the northern states of Nigeria. In Afghanistan, Pakistan, Qatar, Somalia, the UAE, the death penalty could be applied because of lack of clarity in the law. And I abhor that that is the case in parts of the world, that to be gay, that you could be killed just for being gay. And that's why I'm very proud of the protections that this Conservative government has put into place over the last decade. Same-sex marriage, something of which I'm very proud. But also in 2021, the Ministry of Defence introduced pardons for those in the UK military who had been committed of gay sex offences historically. That finally brought an end to centuries-old legislation which had devastated the lives of many gay men previously. Or Turing's Law in 2017, which gave automatic pardons to deceased men who had been convicted of since-abolished offences. And also, it's very good to hear that there have been hundreds of applications for a formal pardon following the introductions of those measures by this Conservative government, righting the wrongs of the past as should be done, bringing justice eventually to those who were wronged. So yes, we've made progress in the United Kingdom when it comes to standing up for gay rights, and I'm very proud of that progress. And I oppose this bill. Not, I should say, and I feel like I'm obliged to make this clear on the record, I am not transphobic. I am not homophobic, because I'm sure that rising today to make this speech will lead to another barrage of trolling and abuse and hate mail because of my views that I'm holding, born out of compassion for the gay community, but also compassion for young people, and a sincere belief in the immutability of sex, of the binary nature of sex, and of the views that I dearly hold in terms of protecting single-sex spaces for women and safeguarding children. But I feel obliged to make that clear today, because we'll all be smeared very quickly after this debate, sadly, which is a sorry indictment of our public discourse on this subject. So I have grave concerns about this bill for several reasons. I won't go into them in a lot of detail because a lot of them have been set out by other colleagues. But firstly, the need for this bill. I've heard what the Honourable Member for Kemp Town has said, but I strongly challenge the reliance that he puts on the evidence that suggests there is actually a chronicled, verifiable problem that needs to be fixed by a new law. There is a complete absence of verifiable, quantitative evidence demonstrating that harmful conversion practices are widespread or occurring frequently in this country. I've referred to what's happening atrociously in many other countries around the world. Thankfully, those things don't happen in this country. I won't because of time. And so there is very little evidence that conversion therapy is a current problem in this country. The various surveys that have been quoted, like the National LGBT Survey of 2017 or the Ozanne Foundation's Faith and Sexuality Survey, have severe shortcomings with the evidence base and the ways in which those surveys were complied. A police freedom of information request demonstrate that police forces throughout the UK, when asked whether they had received any reports of electroshock treatment or corrective rape between 2010 and 2020, responded with relevant data and confirming that no police force had ever recorded any such complaint. Yes.
Just quickly, the other thing that has been cited by the other side is instances of unregulated therapy that would fall foul of this new law. Is she aware that the Children's Act itself already specifies that therapy, or in fact any practice that is likely to cause psychological harm, is already a criminal offence? So again, even that non-coercive, non-threatening, non-violent abuse, which the other side are trying to criminalise, is already illegal.
Well, my honourable friend brings me on to the next point, which I am going to make, but he made very, very powerfully. The existing law already protects gay and trans people from verbal and physical abuse, much like he's just set out. So the offensive and abhorrent practices that we're talking about but can't yet evidence include corrective rape, electroshock therapy, forced marriage, screaming in the face, holding down while praying, threats of physical violence, harassment, coercive or controlling behaviour, and other physical and verbal abuse, as my honourable friend sets out. But all of that activity is criminalised under multiple and myriad laws, ranging from the Sexual Offences Act 2003 to the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. There is a very long list which I just don't have time to go through.
Thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. I just want to make a very swift point, which is that there is a whole range of legislation in place to manage many of the concerns that have been voiced across the Chamber, and nobody is in any way suggesting that we are supporting, I'm certainly not supporting conversion practices, but what the legislation that specifically looks at that has to do, it needs to have absolute precision about what it's absolutely addressing. And the problem with this legislation is so wide in scope, and it replicates legislation that's already in place. What we need is to look at the current legislation, what's covered, look for the gap, and if it does exist, and then legislate precisely to address the problem.
Again, he puts it incredibly well and reminds me of Edmund Burke, who said that bad laws are the worst sort of tyranny. And bad laws make bad customs. And in this place, we want to avoid good people making bad laws. And I'm afraid, because of the coverage by the legislation of all the sorts of horrendous behaviour that's being talked about, there is absolutely no good reason for this legislation. It is a bad law. Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the right way. And I hear what she says in respect of there being existing legislation covering many of the things that the Honourable Member's bill sought to protect from today. Could she outline to the House, while she was in the Home Office, what work she did to ensure that sufficient provision and advice was given to the CPS and police forces and guidance to ensure that they had the requisite knowledge to deal with these issues under the existing law?
Well, during my time as Home Secretary, we issued new guidance on non-hate crime incidents, which does support many aspects of what we are talking about, not all, but some. And we clarified the parameters for these kinds of non-crime hate incidents to protect minority groups, to protect the LGBT community, and to ensure that fairness and safety was applied by policing. The next reason is that the scope, as the Honourable Member says, is incredibly wide in this bill. This bill does not require the defendant to intend any harm to be caused, for it to be criminal. I find that incredibly concerning. It will capture so many types of behaviour where there is an innocent or well-intentioned objective, and where legitimate practices, whether it's in the religious field or in the therapeutic field or in the teaching field or just being a regular parent, will be caught, possibly inadvertently when we're here today in this chamber, but in the practice they will necessarily be caught by interpretations of some of the clauses in this bill.
No, she's giving way. Yes, sorry. Sorry. Look, I don't agree with much of what the honourable member is saying, but she must recognise that we do legislate in this House for things that are other than harms. You know, kind of, we legislate that you're not allowed to do false advertising. You know, kind of, we legislate in other areas to say you can't do things, even if it doesn't cause direct harm to individuals, because it's of the social good of the fabric of our society that these things shouldn't happen. And is not the point of this to say where explicit harm is caused, it is criminal, and Home Secretary should and should have put forward guidance for that to be prosecuted, and where it's not harmful but it is dangerous for our society, then we should produce a threshold that meets. And that's the point of this bill, is it not?
I agree with him to the degree that, yes, we do have victimless crimes. Yes, we have legislation that does provide for those kinds of offences. But here, I think we really run the risk of causing harm through this bad law, and I'll come on to the point about the potential harm caused by this legislation. And, as I said before, I seriously and strongly challenge the evidence base that he relies on to suggest there is actually a definable problem that needs to be fixed in this country. The next point I would say is about the harm potentially caused by this well-intentioned but misguided bill. There will be a disproportionate impact on those people of faith. The language of predetermined purpose will disproportionately catch people of faith. Now, many religions, most religions, I would argue, make many claims about the truth based on a body of teaching to which followers must adhere. In traditional religions, at least, any religious advice will be predetermined by that teaching, and that will be communicated to people. Now, in those instances where a priest or an imam or a rabbi or anyone of some of the major religions attempts to pray for a member of their congregation who is presented to them with concerns or anxiety about these issues, they would be caught by this bill. I think there is a real chilling effect on the expression of religion and the freedom of religious belief.
It's quite clear through some of the exemptions that individual prayer is not caught on this, and if they feel that it is too thinly defined, of course we could have gone to committee to thrash it out. Absolutely. But can she tell me any mainstream religion that says that you must change your sexual orientation or your transgender identity in their religious text, where the religious text says that you have to change? I'm not aware of any that says that, and so therefore I don't understand why any religion would be caught up with this.
I just want to point out there are still several other members who wish to participate. Suella Braverman.
With the proposer of the bill. Listen, we all know that in religious contexts, people will pray for all sorts of things about other fellow travellers in their faith, and we know, and the point I make still stands. Lastly, I would say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I'm conscious other people want to speak, I am very concerned about the impact on parents and teachers and therapists. And I speak now not as the Member of Parliament for Fareham, who has met, as I referred earlier, to many constituents now, parents who are upset and traumatised by observing what their young teenagers or young adults have gone through, but as a mum myself of young children who are beginning their education in British schools, I, as a mother, feel it is my responsibility to do everything to give my life for the safety of my children. I would do anything for my children. I know every parent would. And if I were in the position of having a child presenting anxiety, my own child presenting questions like this, I would want to support them. I'd want them to be happy, but I'd also want to direct them in the way that I knew best, consistent with my parental authority, educating them and teaching them about gender and sex. And in my view, in our household, in my family, we believe that a man cannot be a woman, a boy cannot be a girl, and that is what I would be telling my children, with the best intentions and from a place of love. And if that were to criminalise me, that would be a crying shame and a total undermining of good parenting in this country.